Pittsburgh International Race Complex, round 5 of 6 of the Midwest ASRA Series, August 2020. I love this track. I'm not great at this track, but I love this track. The forecast for this race weekend was about the worst I'd ever seen. The 2 weeks leading up to this thing, everybody saw that they were supposed to plant a hurricane right on top of the race complex, and I know it kept a lot of people from the Midwest from coming, but you should have come, because it turned out to be more dry than wet. Still was wet at times. So I did the practice day on Friday, and I'd been here twice before, 2:11s in the year prior, and then I ran 2:03.8 or something this May before I ended up doing a front flip and breaking my hand, so I wanted to do better than that. I thought realistically I could do a 2:01, and then optimistically I could get to the 2s or maybe even beyond that. What I was really struggling with the most was really the getting through turns 6 and 17, which are the sweepers, and so I'm going to start with the first race, which I think was Thunderbike 1, to show a little bit of it, what I was doing in this turn most of the time. And I just kept running wide, and I felt like I was losing time. And I get that, and it wakes you up. But I know I wasn't the only one struggling with that, but it just kept happening, and I don't know, I didn't finish that race very well. I think I ran like 2:05. I had my confidence shattered a little bit. So now we're going to have one of those races that the GTL race was in May, where it's going to be drizzling the whole time. But it's not the first time I'm seeing this. But it certainly gets your attention just seeing the droplets coming down. So I hadn't put on a new slick. I'm still running the same slick I ran slicks I ran 2 rounds ago. I honestly thought this was going to be wet, and then it didn't, so I didn't switch it in time. I don't want to blame the tire, though. So I'm really thinking hard about trying to make this pass, getting into 4, and I just couldn't commit to it. I was close to trying to pull this one off, because I wanted to stay with that bike in front of me, but no, that would have been forcing the issue too much. And I didn't even realize this until I was just putting this video together, but the bike in front of me sounds very much like an inline 4. And it also says R6 on the side of it, so a little bit confused. It's in a lightweight supersport race, but that doesn't really matter, because most of these bikes are just going to go flying by me anyway. And there goes 660, and I'm going to try to keep with this bike as well as I can. Something I've been learning about myself in these S's, because they have been the most fruitful spot for me to pass most of the time, is that I kind of run offline because I'm trying to be optimistic if I'm running behind somebody that I don't know very well, and I don't know the 2 riders in front of me. So I want to just keep a little bit off so I can potentially get around him and put myself next to him, but I probably shouldn't be doing that all the time, because it's not the optimal way to get around it. But generally, if I'm running right behind somebody for the first time, I do that, and I bet I'm leaving the door open for somebody to actually come and take that spot from me. So this is the part where once you get a little bit, I don't want to blame motors, but this is where I can see that there's a bit of a motor difference where I lose time on the 3 big straightaways here. But for the most part, I'm able to keep it decent on the slower parts. And I had been practicing this on Friday, going outside on this. That's why I kept this lap in, because I knew there might be an opportunity to do that. And we had been talking about potentially running that outside line around the patch. The 2 guys that I had been pitting with, could we potentially use that? So I wanted to try to get used to that in race pace. This is how I'd normally been hitting this turn, and this is what I was struggling with. It doesn't look terrible, but I want to be more right. It's taking me forever to get full throttle, and I just feel like I push so far right, so I keep playing with the bike and all this other kind of stuff, and then I accidentally figure out later how I can tighten up that turn. So now this is the next day. We are in the middle of the lightweight GP race. There was a red flag on the 2nd or 3rd lap of this race, so we get to restart it. And well, this is so funny to me. So there's a big gaggle of bikes. There's like 8 bikes in front of me, maybe 8 bikes behind me. And then the last thing everybody's saying is, stay off the paint, stay off the paint. Now, this is a rain race. There's obviously blue in the sky, but there's also rain all over the place. It's not actively raining hard, but there's rain going on in different spots. So everybody's yelling, stay off the paint, stay off the paint. I saw 2 really bad crashes on the paint when I was sitting on Spectator Hill with a broken hand last time. I'm sure as shit gonna stay off the paint, but what made me laugh, unfortunately I don't know how to shift into third gear, so I don't get a great view of it, but I watch every bike in front of me drive right the fuck over that paint. All of the guys who were saying don't drive over the paint, because every one of them I'm sure was thinking they're going to be the one that goes over the paint and gets a little bit of an advantage over everybody else, but I'm not going over that paint. Anyway, I don't do well in the rain races. It is what it is. This is how the race ended. I'd been following this guy. I'm like, I bet somebody's going to run out of gas because of how many extra laps they added. I didn't think it would be the guy right in front of me, but I was pretty thrilled about it, so sorry for him. But I was like, I wonder if that's going to happen to somebody, because I bet people guess at how much gas they have. Maybe give them a lap extra, but we had to put a bunch of extra laps on for that flag. So anyway, this is the race. This is Thunderbike 2. This is only two races after that race that I had just been doing in the wet. Everybody saw that this thing was going to dry out like immediately. It was basically dry by the end of our wet race on that last one. And I now have a new fresh slick on the rear of this. And so I don't have that excuse of, I'm just squirmy all over. And I really was squirmy in places that I hadn't been squirmy before. Like the S's are generally the stronger suit for me on this track, and I was squirming on the left-handed S's, which I never squirm on the left. Rights I'll squirm every once in a while, but lefts I feel very confident going left. I never gotten squirms like that, so I'm like, we have to put a new slick on this thing. So it's the first time I'm running SC1 because they didn't have SC2s there. I don't really know the difference. I'm sure I've read all about the differences, but I can't feel the difference. Anyway, so this is the race that made me feel good about the entire trip out. I love being at pit. I love pitting with the guys that I've pit with, and I love being there. But I hadn't been happy with any of my performances to this point, so I ran like a 203.7 on the last lap of that last race, because like, fuck it, this might be the only lap that I get that's going to be dryish. But I wanted to try to beat it on this one. So Pittsburgh, when you're starting, it's a little bit weird. This is downhill, so like you can't just rest the bike. It'll move forward. So I think I have my right foot forward, or I'm holding the brake. I tried different things all through the whole thing to try to figure out how to do this. But it's really weird starting here because you're downhill. And then the 518 launches himself to the moon twice, and I still don't manage to get by him, and it's because I don't have the confidence to go into the turn on the first lap if I'm on the inside at the speed I should be going. So you'll end up seeing my speedometer drop to like 50 miles an hour. And there's no reason to be dropping that slow. I should be at minimum 60, realistically 65 going through there. And I let the 518 go past me on this. So I want to stick with that bike as close as I can. Just because I know he's a second or two faster than me, but if I can keep with him, maybe I can learn, and you got a carrot to follow, you're going to be able to go faster. But he ends up putting on a really good move on this bike in front, which is one that I wanted to try to do later in this race. But I was never able to quite get next to him right by that point. So I'm running this one wide. This is sort of how I've been running the whole time. It doesn't look that bad, but it feels terrible on the bike because it's taking me forever to get to full throttle. So now I'm going to settle in a bit, but I want to figure out, well, I shouldn't say settle in, because I'm doing the thing where I try to prod around when I'm behind a rider that I don't know very well, because I feel confident in the S's. If he's going to have a weak spot, I feel like I could pounce on him, but I'm not seeing a weak spot at all there. Not at all. In fact, I rode behind this bike quite a bit, and there was no chance I was getting around him on the S's on the traditional route that I normally would. So I should have put that in my memory at this point, but I didn't, and I kept trying to do it through this race. So coming up into, 14 and 15, and 16 on this, I get buzzed by a bike that's just cooking, and this one makes you feel alive. And then after this happens, I'm like, here we go. All right. So I'm like, yes. All right, I am keeping up with that bike. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. All right, so let's get a good turn into 17, 18 here. Here we go. Damn near ended both of our weekends because I didn't think the bike was going to be going that slow at that point. All right, no harm, no foul. Let's see if we can keep up with these two bikes. I'm not expecting it at this point, and I also forgot how to shift right there. But I'm going to try. because I could feel that this tire already feels way better. I can see that we got a leg dangler. You see a leg dangler and he's not out of your sight yet. It just puts it in your head like, oh, I'm going to try to keep up with him, even though I'm probably just going to see him disappear into the distance. But I'm going to try. They haven't disappeared yet. This is the biggest strength of horsepower on this entire track, I think, is running up this hill. But you can see I'm still running it pretty outside. But they're not getting away yet, so I can just commit to running my race the way that I think that I should be able to get around this track. I might be able to hang with these two bikes for a little while. This turn 14 is the coolest turn in like any track, but it's also the scariest turn. I've hit that correctly 3 times in my life. Obviously I didn't there. When you hit it correctly, there's a huge sense of accomplishment that comes over you. It doesn't happen very often. This is a spot on the track. I know I can hold it wide open through there, but I hadn't been committing to it. So a bit wide there. All right, so then here, on accident, I accidentally found the slow part of the corner, and I gave myself permission enough to slow it down. So I tried it again next lap. You know what? I wasn't running nearly as wide again. So I've been listening to a bunch of the Ken Hill podcasts about trying to find the slowest part of the corner, and it's so minuscule to find that slow part, and I hadn't been able to do what I just did there. It doesn't feel any faster. I don't even know if it looks any faster. But it was a big kind of a aha moment for me that I was actually able to take that more inside route and get onto full throttle quicker, even though you're going slower for a bit of it. I feel like I can parlay that in the future into actually figuring out how to get around this track quicker. I don't even know if it was that much faster, but I could see that I was running 2 seconds a lap quicker than I had ever run. So I know that I'd run 2:01s in the last several laps trying to keep up with these guys, which is 2 seconds quicker than I had been running. So I'd attributed a lot of it to actually finding that that slow spot of the corner. So I think this is the last lap, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get around them, but if I am going to actually finish in front of one of them, I'm probably going to have to beat them into the S's, or at the very least pass them in the S's. But I think I have to beat him into the S's to get enough space between me and him in the straightaways. So it's kind of going to depend on how I get into 4 and then ultimately 6 here. And there's just no way I'm going to get next to him there. All right, so now we got to try to figure out how to do this. So he can run that wide, but he's going to be able to still beat me up on here. And you can run that wide and not actually lose that much time. It just feels terrible. And I also think it punishes the shit out of your tires. So I have it in my head. I'm going to try 4th S, but I shouldn't have been thinking this. I should have been thinking to take the optimal route so I could try to get into turn 12 before him. But again, he's actually very good through the S's, and there was no way I was actually going to pull off a pass in the S's on this guy. Not a chance. So we're going to be coming up to the last turn. I know what I'm going to try to do. I talked about it earlier. I'm going to try that outside pass because these two have been, especially the guy in front, has been going through this last turn really weird. It's going to be my best chance to try to go around the outside. I can already see it can't happen because we're coming up onto lap traffic. So the route I want to take, I was going to sail it way in there and try to go around and just but get in front of them, maybe disrupt it a little bit somehow so they couldn't just get on that power. But no, that's all right. I couldn't figure out what that bike was in front of me because I kept thinking through the whole race, what bike, what lightweight has an undertail exhaust like that? So I did end up looking it up. So that was a Ducati Monster in front of me. Freaking cool looking bike. I was able to find some pictures of it, and it was one of the coolest looking bikes there. So anyway, this is how this one finished. I didn't go, well, I guess I reached my realistic goal, which was 201s. I know I could have run faster. The three of us were compromising each other's laps a little bit. Also, I know if I would have figured that out with the slow point of the turn, it sounds so damn obvious, but until you do it, and I don't even know if I've done it right yet, but it was really an aha moment in the middle of the race where I was able to see that. The other thing that I was able to do, so yeah, obviously I didn't hit my optimistic goal of 2s, but I get to go here again next year. If I get lucky enough to go to Pittsburgh International Race Complex again next year, I know I can hit 2s, and I actually think I can break it too. I do. I know that sounds like a lot, especially if you've just watched that and you're like, you don't look like you're anywhere close there. I'm positive I can do it. One of the things when I was getting ready to go to this race is I was watching another guy's footage quite a bit. He'd posted some footage, and so one of the things that he was doing, I noticed what I was struggling with. I shouldn't say struggling, but I was trying to break into turn 1 too late, so I was overrunning turn 1 quite a bit, and I tried to be very late on the brakes if possible because I feel pretty confident in my braking ability, but I felt like after watching his video where he was running 158s on a bike that looks just like mine, in fact, it looked just like mine. It was a blue Gen 1 SV650. He had a video out, I think it was Dennis Rodriguez. I could see his brake markers were a half brake marker behind mine, yet his roll speed was so much quicker through those corners. So I was practicing trying to do that. Let me just show it to you real quick. I'm just going to show a little bit of his video here. You can see, I just want to show you into turn 1 and then into turn 3. So I was aiming for the 2.5 board on turn 1 before, and I know I was hitting close to it, and he was braking much earlier than that. But the bikes in front of him, they're in a battle, and they're going 158s. So I just kept studying this footage, and I was trying to go a good bit past the 3 board on here, and I can see his brakes are on well before the 3 board, and he rolls these corners so much better. So I'd watch that quite a bit, and just looking at these times where I actually think I'm going to be able to find a bit of time. It's probably not actually the ones that I was just saying so much. Turn 17 here and turn 6 here. What changing my line will do for me is remove a ton of the risk, because I was running faster. It was only about a 1/10 faster on each of those. I thought I was going to be making up the majority of the 2 seconds that I was picking up over my previous times, but it turned out to only be like a 1/10 or 2 on each of those. However, it was taking out so much risk, and it opened up so many more possibilities because I wasn't committed to just running that one line with my hair on fire. It was the same thing I was doing at Gingerman. It could work for a couple laps. It would start tearing up your tires. It was extremely difficult to run that every time, and you were on a razor, you're on a nice edge actually making that work. And if you ran too wide, you just had to kill throttle to actually stay inside the track. Finding that slow point actually really helped me quite a bit. Where I'm going to be able to make up the most time in the future is actually going back to that video I just mentioned. So looking at that slow point of the corner, my video versus Dennis Rodriguez's, I'm willing to bet his slow point here is much closer to 70 than it is 65. Or my slow laps before I tried to modify it, which was closer to like 62. Here to here is a difference of about 0.35 seconds. That's substantial when you're searching for 1 or 2 seconds. That roll speed, by just letting off a little bit earlier or building into the braking point that I want to be at later, figure out where that roll speed is first before trying to drive it as late as I possibly can into that thing. Turn 3, I probably don't have as much that I have to adjust my braking, but what I do have to do is not try to go nuts hitting 4 with like full speed, because 4, throwaway corner is a tough thing to say, but trying to get through 4 as quick as possible and then compromising 5 is not worth it. 5 is a much more important corner. Is that 5? Or that's 3. Sorry, 4, I think is a much more... Where the hell are we? Yeah, okay, that's 3. 4, I think, is a much more important corner to get that thing pointed so you can accelerate all the way down into this bowl here, as opposed to just getting through this thing as quickly as possible. And then the last part, where I think I can make up the most time, is the area right here where you get to this little kink, which I think is 15. You can see it on here. This isn't how I should have been running it. This is me letting off. For some reason, I was probably coming in too tight, so I had to let off for it. But my line on the quicker laps was not near close enough to it. And the other thing I'm not doing after watching video, I'm not shifting from 5th to 6th gear quick enough. In fact, I'm hanging out in 5th gear like way too long and just pinging the rev limiter before I get to 6th. I probably need to get out of that quicker. And then when I grow a set of testicles, I will be able to make it through this thing without letting off. I shouldn't actually have to let off. And I think where is the let off point? It's roughly about here where I'm letting off. I don't need to let off there until about here. When you're doing it in person, though, things go way faster than it looks on the GoPro. And the consequences of that are really substantial for screwing that part up. But I know I can go faster through that part. So that was Pittsburgh International Race Complex. I did all right. I got one race weekend left. Blackhawk is actually in a couple days. I've got major bike issues, which is why I hadn't done anything for a video. I've been trying to get that bike ready. I have 3 major issues. I'm bottoming out. I was bottoming out pretty bad into turn 1 and turn 3. I think I've fixed that. I've did my first ever cartridge fork spring change. My brakes don't work. They haven't worked since I crashed at Gingerman. And I think I fixed that. I won't know until I get out there. And I did a track day last weekend. Yeah, last weekend at Blackhawk, and I blew my shock. And I was looking at the rear tire, and I was destroying it, and I never destroy rear tires. And the shock was blown. That just got repaired by TSE. I just got that in last night, and now I am crossing my fingers that all of the work I've been doing, which has all been building up to this last weekend, I want to hit a 118 at Blackhawk. That has been the goal for the entire year. I had 2 goals stated for this entire year. Get a real expert podium, which is going to depend quite a bit on the people that come, and I'm going to argue I already hit that. But realistically, my goal is to hit a 118 at Blackhawk, and I'm going to try really hard to do that. So I will have another one of these. I'll have my last one for the year coming up soon. So you watch this far. Thanks for watching.